Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make these flowers and paint them, and you're not going to believe how easy they are. You do not have to be an artist. So what I've done here is I've taken 2 of the coffee filters. The first one I just balled it up in my hands. The second one I kind of went over the top, trimmed it, and just glued it into a ball. And that's it. So now you're going to need to cut 5 coffee filters. So I have this one, just do one at a time. So I have it in half. So I'm going to do half once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So it's just gonna look like a little cone. Now you can make flowers without doing this, but I wanted them to look more like peonies, and I thought this gave it a nice effect. So what you're gonna do is start about an inch down. Don't go straight up, but you're gonna go pretty close to straight up to cut those edges off. And then just make sure all the layers stay together and just give it a little ripply effect. Nothing crazy. Then come back around and cut that down again about another inch. So when you open it up, it kind of looks like a heart. So you're gonna need 5 of these, but to make it go quick, I am gonna use a hot glue gun, and I will warn you, the paper is thin, so it may look like I'm smashing down on the paper, but I'm definitely not, so just be very careful with that. So what I'm gonna do is take on the ball, I want the smooth side to show. So I'm going to take, the first layer is the hardest. So I'm going to take a little bit of glue on the side, and I'm going to line up the coffee filter so that it kind of comes right around the top there. Kind of ball it up. So now this is going to fold over, and then just put a little bit of glue. Again, it's hot through the paper. You're just gonna roll it. Don't put it on the tips. You're coming down at least an inch so that the tips stay kind of fluffy. Okay, so once we get that first one on, that's the easy part. And it's just gonna look like that. So the rest of them are going to go pretty quickly. So you take your glue, and you're going to come, you know, in a circle. You don't want any of these petals glued. So I'm going to work really quickly and go around in a circle and just kind of swirl it to the center. Now you're going to put this here and fold your ends up like this. And this is where I'm saying be careful because it gets hot. So initially you're just going to gently tap it. And then you can feel it through there. Once it cools a little bit, you can go ahead and squeeze it in. So just make sure it's cool and that you don't get burned through the paper. So now you're going to do the exact same thing on all the other ones. You can see how pretty they're getting. Now, if you want to make a wreath or something with different size flowers, you can stop at this many, or you can keep adding just to create variant in sizes. This is totally up to you. I'm not going to fast forward because this is just really that fast, and then I'm going to show you how to paint them. You can do this with regular glue. It just takes a little more patience. I made my first one with regular glue, and when I came back to make more, I realized that this is actually much faster. So we'll go around the last one. Okay. It's kind of crazy how real they end up looking. So what I've done for painting is this is about 1/4 cup of water and about 4 drops of red food coloring. So I'm going to keep layering this so you can see how it changes. So this one over here is about the same amount of water with the yellow. So what you do is you don't want to use a ton of water. You just kind of want to let it drip. So I'm going to do the center yellow. So you can see that when I tap that, it just kind of expands out. I found this easier because I've seen people like put all of their coffee filters in water and then trying to dry them in the oven, you really don't need to. So you can see I have a cute little yellow center. It's nice and pale. Sometimes as these dry, it'll get a little too pale and you can go back in a layer just a little bit more on top, but we'll look at that as we go. So now one look you can do with the red is just to barely tip all of the edges. And again, just kind of go slow. They really don't take long. I painted an entire wreath and it only took me maybe 20 minutes and I think I had 12 flowers. So this really does not take long. So this is one look where you can just tip the edges. So I mixed my wreath where I did half of my flowers like this, and then the other half, I used a tiny bit more water, and I went towards the center and just kind of just gently drug it out. And you can see now it's adding a little bit more of the pink. Now, if you wanted this to be brighter pink, you could just use a lot more food coloring. But again, you're just kind of letting it drain on there. The coffee filter will actually kind of pull the color off the brush. So you don't want to get it sopping wet. Then I'm going to show you, if you can hang in there, I'm going to go ahead and fill this one. I'm going to show you how you can add just even a little bit more definition if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, so now this one's a little more peachy pink, and I'm going to add just a tiny bit to the center to give that a little depth. But I'm not an artist. This is just me playing around. This is how I figured it out. So anyone can do these. Okay, so then what I did is this cup over here is about maybe like a teaspoon or two of water and the same like 4 or 5 drops of red food coloring. So it's a lot more concentrated. So I'm going to use the same brush, but now you can just dip that and brush it off. You can just come to the top of the flower very gently and just add a little bit more definition. You don't have to get all of them. You can do some down the center too if you want. And it starts taking on color, and you can just keep going, or I think this one's about good, so I'm just going to leave it. So the last thing I'm going to show you, I'm just going to do this all in one video. I don't have time to cut it today. Okay, so if you want leaves, I have glued the leaves directly at the back of the flower and painted them at the same time, but sometimes they get hidden, so I've decided to start cutting them separately. So I'm folding a coffee filter into 4, and then I'm just going to cut the leaf pattern. I did find this is better to do on cardboard just because it takes a minute for the leaves to dry. But when you open this up, you get 4 leaves, and you can just, once they're painted and dry, you can just glue it right to the back of the flower like that. Or you can cut the leaves completely off, glue all your flowers on, and then go back and figure out where you want a leaf. So I'm going to use this green, and I add a little yellow to it. So the same thing, you're just going to gently brush. You don't need a lot of water, but just let it kind of soak in. You don't even need to go all the way to the center because you're not going to see it. So again, I'm kind of mixing a little yellow and green. So that's how I do the leaves. I won't do all of them, but you get the general idea. And then lastly, if you're making a wreath, I use one of these wire wreath frames. This is an old one I had just to show you, but I just glued or taped the coffee filters right around the edge, and this will help give you a better surface for the flowers to stick. So literally just wrap them around till they're kind of tight around there. If you want to use a ribbon or leave a spot for hanging, it's super easy to poke through the back. But then when you glue your flowers on, it gives them something to stick to. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. It makes a beautiful wreath. And if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.